Hey everybody, it's Nancy May from Doing It Best with Eldercare Success. And this is a rather sticky question that we're going to address today because it's all about ethics. Well, maybe it's not ethics and morals, but it certainly is about the question of, is it okay to lie to mom and dad? And it depends on who you're asking that question of. See, I've had a couple conversations, well, more than a few conversations with caregivers, and it's over the course of my own care that this question of whether it was okay or whether we should lie to mom and dad in certain situations was the right thing to do. The thing here in starting out is to understand that everybody or every one of our situations is a little different. And yes, generally, it's not the good thing to do to lie to a parent. And it's probably not a great thing in keeping a trusting relationship going to lie to somebody who you love anyway. But in this case, the question drove a lot of controversy. Some people said, absolutely not. You never lie to your elders. It's a respect. You just don't do it no matter what. Period. End of story. Scratch my head on that one and think, okay, I get that. Then others said, absolutely. It's the right thing to do. It gives them dignity and respect and keeps their own heart whole when they don't necessarily know the entire truth. Well, is that really lying, or are you just not revealing everything that's real? Or that could hurt them. And then the other was, it depends. I kind of am on the border of it depends. Now, first of all, if you want to have trust with a parent, no matter whether they've got dementia or not, knowing how to be, I'll say, truthful to them in a way that doesn't outright black lie, maybe a wrong word, but I'm going to use it anyway, where it's going to hurt them in any way, and it could hurt you or backlash in any way, is probably not the best thing to do. But in certain situations, the story of actually repeating the same thing over and over and exacerbating a situation or driving a hurt deeper in somebody who has dementia or some type of cognitive impairment can not necessarily be the best for them or for you. First of all, I don't believe that anybody, and this is a personal thing, should have to be backed into a corner to live with more pain than they have to, especially at this point in their life. If there's a way to make things gentle in telling the truth, then I'm fine with that. But if it's going to cause pain and hurt, that's going to make them live that story over and over again, I think there are other ways to handle or even redirect a conversation. For example, my mom, who had what they call frontal temporal dementia, one day was listening into a conversation, I didn't realize it, while I was visiting her and dad, and there was a picture of my Uncle Ken over in a bookshelf, and that was my mom's brother, an older brother. He was quite a well-known actor and singer in the course of his career and ran the Department of Music at the University of Kansas. Mandy Patinkin was one of his star students. Stories of that one were pretty great. In any case, one of the aides said, "Who is that guy over there? He's got quite a look on his face." And I said, "Oh, that's my mom's brother, my Uncle Ken. He died several years ago." Unbeknownst to me, Mom's ears were sharp as could be, and she lashed out, and I heard a screech. She said, "He is not dead. Why on earth would you say that?" So I quickly did an about face and said, "You're right. I don't know where my head is at. Because I know I just talked to him just the other week, and he said he was great. We laughed. We had a good time on the phone, and he sends his love." Well, in spirit, I know that he sent his love to all of us. But she did say, "Well, I'm glad that he's okay, and think about what you're going to say next time." She didn't quite say it that way, but it was something like that. So the about face on opening mouth, inserting foot, a Bigfoot at the time, was something that kind of stretched the truth. I may have had a conversation with Ken, but he wasn't with us. At other times, I told the truth and it hurt all of us. But these kinds of truths were important to share. One such example was talking to my dad after he'd had a rather serious situation in operation shortly before the end of his life, probably about 12 months, 10 or 12 months out. And he had to have a heart valve, I'll call it repair. In order to do so, they went up through the artery in his groin to his heart to take care of that. And at the end, they had to take out that, I guess it was the hose. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. That came out of the artery, and they don't sew it up, but they put an awful lot of pressure on the artery there in the groin area to stop the bleeding so it won't continue and he won't bleed out. I wasn't there when they did that. In fact, they asked me to leave the room because it took some time, probably about 20 minutes. And at the end, I went back in, and Dad was very quiet. I could tell that he was not in the greatest level of comfort. In fact, he was probably in a great amount of discomfort at the time. And then he quietly said that night, "Gosh, that was the most excruciating pain I have ever had in my entire life. If we didn't do that, would I have died?" Tough question to answer. So even as I'm sharing this with you now, I sort of felt that gut pull really in my heart and in my chest. I took a deep breath and said, "Yes." That was it. Closed his eyes. He listened, and I know he was taking it all in. And that was it. But I told him the truth. It was a hard one. And I think at that point, he probably realized that we were coming to the end of a pretty great story. Dad and Mom's life together. And other times, I kind of glossed over the truth. As a daughter of a business owner and a business owner myself, we had a lot of conversations about business, life, finances. He trusted me with a lot, and thankfully he did. And I took that trust and responsibility seriously, as I know you do too with your folks. But at times he would ask, "How's business going?" And as we all know, not every day is a good day. So when things were a little wonky, I would say, they're a little rough patch right now we're going through. We talk about it. I wouldn't get into detail. And then we just move on. I'd figure it out. I always did. And I always will. But those are two examples of lying and stretching the truth, or just maybe glossing over the truth, and being brutally honest. Now, I know there are other people who are dealing with the same challenges and issues. And some say, if you don't tell the truth, you will lose the trust in a parent and even yourself. That may be at times, but every situation is different. And nobody has the right to tell you what is right for your particular situation. Another example is when I didn't quite know how to tell Mom, or if we should tell Mom, that Dad had passed. Now, I knew she was aware of it, even with her dementia, because she spent the day before sitting with him. The aides brought her in just to have a conversation with Dad. I don't think they actually told her that he was dying, but she knew. Nobody needed to tell her. She cried. Oh my God, she cried and put her head on Dad's chest and just said, "Please, Stu, don't leave me. Don't leave me. I can't live without you." Watching that from the other room was incredibly painful. The girls did that for her. I couldn't. So sometimes in telling the truth or sharing those gentle moments, it may just be easier to have somebody else help you through those times. I know it worked for me. One other time is when I didn't know actually how to tell Mom, or if we should tell her. After he had passed, she'd seen his body go out the door. He was covered in a flag. nod his head. I refused to do that until we absolutely had to, which they insisted as he left the house. Unfortunately, because as far as I was concerned, he was still my dad, and no flag needed to be draped over his face. But according to rules and regulations that they had to follow, it needed to be done. So we kept Dad intact and visible for all of us to see and with us until he left that front door. Mom, on the other hand, didn't seem to be fazed by it one way or the other. I guess she was kind of used to the ER in and out or the paramedics in and out every now and then, even for herself. It became a bit of a routine. Well, not a weekly routine, but certainly a couple of times a year. And in this case, telling her that he was gone because he wasn't physically there anymore was the question. Do we tell her? Do we lie? Or just not tell her the truth? Or just not tell her at all? I guess it's kind of one and the same. So in conversations with hospice and with Mom's primary care doctor, I was told that the absolute right and moral thing to do was to rip the Band-Aid off and tell Mom. Okay. Tough question, tough decision, tough answers. My main concern for Mom was to make sure that if we did, and how we told her, that she didn't end up having a coronary herself, a stroke, a heart attack, or anything else that would just cause her to drop dead, because the shock of hearing that a loved one has passed when you don't know it is tough, even when we're in good health. So it took Mom to the primary care doctor, had the conversation, and said, do we tell her? First of all, she was in good enough health, her sticker was strong, and she could physically handle it. So that was good. Whether she could emotionally handle it was another story. And the doctor said, it is your absolute moral right to tell her, and if you don't tell her, I will. There is where I have a big problem. I don't think that any doctor has the moral right to tell you what your morals should be. We all have our balance. We all have our lines and paths of making decisions, right or wrong. But to have somebody in a medical profession tell you what you need to do because it's their belief, I think is wrong. So the decision is yours. It's yes, no, and maybe. Now, according to the National Geriatric Care Managers Association, they say you should lie. I'm not sure they actually mean outright lie, but maybe sort of a gentle untruth, if that's a lie or not, I'm not sure. But 90% of them believe that it's the right way to handle a situation by sort of glossing over a truth, especially with somebody who has dementia. Now, sometimes you can redirect a conversation, but other ways, it's going to come back and bite you. So how you have that conversation is your choice, right, wrong, or otherwise. There are people who have big other issues that come into play, and sometimes those are important. Actually, many times they're important. I always made the truth part of our conversation or center of our conversation when we dealt with finances, legal issues, and outright general care issues with Mom and Dad. Predominantly Dad, because he had full cognitive capability right to the end. We discussed money, we discussed legal issues, we discussed the business, and we discussed life in general. I didn't lie to him. Although, all right, I'm going to get caught in this one. Anytime we had a new aide that come in, my lead aide Millie would say, Stu, Odd, we've got somebody new for you to meet. And the way she introduced them, or the way I saw that she introduced them, was to say, here's one of Nancy's new friends. That's right. He was surprised that I knew so many people. Well, that's how we actually introduced new aides to Mom and Dad, by letting them know that they were safe and they were okay, and that they were a friend of mine. Not an outright truth, but certainly an acquaintance by the time we were done talking to them at that point in an interview. So I guess you could say that's a lie. But it was a gentle way to introduce a new person that would work with them. And it worked. It worked for them, it worked for us. And it also made it easier for us to make a decision on how they interacted with mom and dad. But that's for another story. A story about how to hire good aides and how to decide whether they are going to be the right fit for you. But lying is our story today, or whether the truth, yes, no, or maybe, is something that you need to actually decide on. Yes, it's a decision we have to make at many points in time in caregiving. But like I said, the decision is yours. Lying to a parent is probably not a good thing. Making sure that they're not hurting is a better thing. And to make sure that that doesn't backfire on you and hurt you too. So that's how I suggest you make the decision on how to lie, not lie, or maybe lie, or just color the truth a little bit with mom and dad. There is a better way, I know, and every decision counts. Or better yet, every day counts. So I hope this one counts for you too. That's it. It's Nancy May from Eldercare Success. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.